Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Neota Network. My name is Max Patterson. I'm the Global VP of Customer Success, and this is Moses Harding, Solutions Architect here at Neota Logic. Hey, Moses.
Hi.
And we're here to present on workflow and Canvas demo. So this is the portion of the Neota Network where we want to take you inside. We want to share with you the latest and the greatest from the products that we're putting out and the technology that we're leveraging. So before we jump into showing you some live stuff, just wanted to run through where this fits on the spectrum of our 2020 priorities on our product roadmap on all that good stuff. So this is sort of a map of what we are looking to develop in the future and what we have developed. So on the far right side, the firm orange, you'll see a lot of the bread and butter of Neota. So Workbench, Studio, Neota as a Service, NDM, Neota Data Manager, Runtime, all the great stuff that we've developed over the years and honed to make better and better. And then moving over to the left, those sort of hollow orange circles, these are pieces that we've really focused on development in all of 2020 so far and parts of 2019 to complement the standard foundational concepts and build on that. So to build on that suite and give you more bang for your buck. All of what you see here is available as part of your subscription. So that's why we wanted to do this presentation. So what we're going to focus on today are Canvas. So Canvas is our no-code drag and drop interface to make very poignant minimum viable products or prototype apps. Document generation, which we're not going to focus as much on today, but those are things like our Word toolbar add-in. A lot of the more recent use cases that we've seen are document automation, plugging in those Word toolbars or that Word files into Neota and resulting in documents being generated. There will be a portion of that in this demo, so we did want to show you a glimpse of that. So we'll be integrating with Docusign and all that great stuff. And finally, and most importantly, which we'll be spending the bulk of the time today, is workflow. And workflow is the ability to actually string applications together in a visual environment and firing emails, decision points, so that you can actually take a user through a process. Instead of individual applications, see them flow through a process, usually in the approval range of things, so that you can use and leverage information, collect data, and see people flowing through those pieces. So Canvas is still in its first version, but very much a robust first version. Now that we've had it out for a while, put it through its chops. You'll be seeing the first release of workflow. So this actually just got released this week, so very, very new, and how it can fit into your stack, how you can start leveraging it. The document generation and document automation portions are well down the length, so there's been a few redesigns of that and streamlining the whole process. And finally, we're not going to touch on it today, but we have in other talks the Neota University. So that is our self-service education learning tool, so that if you want to get from a just heard of Neota all the way through to I've built an app and get certified on that app to actually get a certification, that's where you can do that. So we'll be touching on the first two mostly, a little bit on the third, and more than happy to reach out if we can give you more information on the fourth one there. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. So before I pass things over to Moses and while you get set up, I'll walk you through the use case that we had in mind for today. So in showing you these products, we wanted to give context for what you're going to be seeing. And so we thought, why don't we build a little scenario for you so that you can understand the tool in context of an actual real life use case. So the scenario here, and this is one that we've actually seen from a few customers and are actually seeing more of, is that given the new business landscape of COVID-19, people now have more agreements with vendors, agreements with third parties that they need to get in place in order to comply with certain COVID-19 regulations. So in this case, one of those scenarios are a lot of big companies are now starting to see more third-party vendors and as well just more support people come through their buildings, their physical spaces. So they've got to actually come up with agreements and get people to sign things beforehand to say that they will comply with certain safety regulations. So the scenario we have today is that there will be an initial approver that kicks everything off, or the initiating party. So they'll kick off the process. So it's someone saying, I want this vendor to agree to our terms. That request goes to an approver. The approver can approve or deny it, say if this is, is this absolutely necessary? Is it essential? Then if it's approved, it goes to the third party where they fill out information, they agree to certain things, and a document is generated. They can then sign that document, and then things loop back to the initial initiator and the approver, so that you can track that process all the way through. You can see where people are if they're getting stuck in that pipeline, and in the end, you can actually see the document and see everything that was agreed to and all of the information that went in the system. So that's the scenario, and I'll hand it over to Moses, who will actually show you what that looks like in our workflow tool.
All right. And, this is something I'm really excited about, actually, because for a long time with Neota, we've had the ability to generate very complex workflows, but it hasn't always been as easy as it could be. And it hasn't always been as visually friendly as it could be. We've listened to a lot of feedback. We've heard a lot of your feedback, and we wanted to make that happen for you. So the end result was we decided to create a tool that was as easy to use as your basic flowchart maker, but had vastly more functionality. And we came up with this. This is workflow. So those of you who are familiar with products will know that a product is a collection of a bunch of apps that work together. Workflows is the successor to products, and it's still a group of apps that work together to accomplish one final result, except that moving from one app to another, moving from an app to an email, visualizing these concepts is incredibly easy. So as Max described before, our process is going to be our initiator fills out an intake, approver is going to approve it or not, the counterparty is going to review it, and if they meet criteria, the counterparty is going to sign it, and the initiator is going to sign it. Now, before we start this, I just want to point to a few things here. We have two pools. We have our initiating party pool, and we have our counterparty pool. Our initiating party is one company. So let's say Neota Logic, and let's say I'm the initiator. But in order for my request to go through, Max needs to approve it. We have different levels of responsibility. So we want to make sure we divide up these tasks. So we have different lanes here. This is the initiator lane. That's me. I'm the one who asked for this, and I'm the one who's going to sign it. And we have the approver, that's Max. He's going to make sure that this is a necessary request that meets with our guidelines. That's just within the organization, the same organization. Our counterparties organization, or our contractors organization, is driven just by them. They're going to answer a few questions, and again, they have different levels of permission, and send it back to us. There are a few points along the way that we have decisions that need to be made. So for example, during the approval process, the approver is going to approve it or not. So what we use in these instances is a gateway. A gateway takes information from previous apps and it uses it to make a decision. In this case, we just call it approved. Is it approved or not? If not, then an email is going to be sent to the initiator and the workflow is going to end. If it is, an email is going to be sent to the counterparty, as we can see here, and it's going to continue. Also, each of these blocks here are called tasks. A task is an object that's associated with a traditional Neota application, one that you're probably used to already if you're familiar with our platform. We also have these emails here. So this is instead of having to build an email out into an application, you can now just have an email front and center, really easy to visualize. So let me run through this workflow with you so we can see how simple it is. So let me click play. The very first thing is we have our intake form. Now, this is super simplified. You know, in reality, you'd probably have a lot more questions, but we just wanted to kind of demonstrate the spirit here. And as you probably know by this point, we could get much more complex, but it's going to ask for the counterparty details, the initiator details, and the approver details. It's going to store this information and use it later. And it has a request description, just describe why we need this request. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And what should happen now is our approver, if we go back to our workflow, our approver should receive an email that says approval needed. So let's just take a look. Yes, I'm an approver and I see that approval is needed. Now, really briefly, I just want to show you a few things. So first of all, I'm going to open up Sessions View, and Sessions View is going to show us a little more information about that case, but let's go back to this email. So I filled out that intake form, then an email was sent out. If I click edit here, I'll be able to see the details of the email that was sent out. So we can see that this is super, super simple. All it took to get this email to send was we named the module. We added the person who's going to receive the email. We added a subject, some text, and this workflow resume URL. Now, in order for me to get the value of to whom it should be sent, all it took was me to go to this value here, insert value, and I can drop down and select any value that was collected at any point during the entire workflow. So if you recall, I've already been asked for the counterparty entity name and the contact email and the proof. All these things are accessible to me immediately as soon as that information is collected. So that's all I need to do in terms of finding a recipient and in terms of resuming the workflow. So let's take a look at the email I received. All right, so we can see that it says, please review whether the following affidavit is necessary. When I click this link, it's going to bring me to the correct place in the workflow. It knows that I should be here. And this is where we can go back to Sessions View and we can see that, sorry, I'll just refresh so you can see it more clearly. We'll be able to see that, we are in fact in the correct place. So it knows that as soon as I complete this initial task, which is, really simply just filling out those questions, it knows that the next step that it must take is send this email. And it knows that once this email is sent, the next step that must be taken is the approval application. If I go back to Sessions View here, I can see some more details about this. So I can see that the current session state is it's in approval, it's in progress, and it's being done by me. This is so much easier. This is so much easier than it's ever been to track session status in real time, because we're able to see not only which part of the process you're in, not only whether you started or finished it, but also who is the person doing it, because we could have, different people doing the same task. There's nothing at all complicated about this. This is built-in functionality that you never need to think about. It just works. Another thing that just works is that workflow resume URL. So I mentioned before, it already knows where to take you. It requires zero additional setup. You don't have to do any kind of formula, nothing fancy. This is just a built-in value that knows where you should be, who you are, what your permissions are, what state are you in. So now that I, as an approver, let's go back here, yeah. So I, as an approver now, I'm presented with this project request. Here are the details that were collected earlier. And it's gonna ask me whether this approval is valid and necessary. If I chose no, if we refer back to our workflow here, we would see that what would happen is the initiator would receive an email. So not approved, the initiator would receive an email and the workflow would end. Since I am going to approve, it's just going to continue. So I'm going to click yes here, and it's going to be sent off to the counterparty. It's super easy to make these gateways. All you have to do is just take the whatever variable you have in an app, and you say either yes or no. That's it. When I go to my email, I am now the counterparty. I receive an email that says, please review. They've asked me to sign a COVID affidavit. And it's that same link as before. I just click it and it brings me to the right place. And we can see now here we are in the counterparty review. Now, one thing I wanted to mention while we're here about permission. So when we go into an individual lane, we have the ability to specify permissions. For example, if I click this lane here and I click this pencil button, this allows me to add a condition that would, for example, prevent someone from incorrectly running this session if they didn't have the right permission. So you can see when I go into sessions view, we have these buttons, the resume buttons. This allows me to resume the application at the appropriate place. We could prevent that from showing, for example, by conditioning a lane to say, if you are an approver, you should not be able to run it when it's at the counterparty review portion, for example. If you're an initiator, you shouldn't be able to run it at the approval portion. So, you know, this button would disappear, and if the incorrect user received an email with a link, they wouldn't be allowed to further the process and, you know, potentially cause disruptions. Now, I'm the counterparty. It's going to ask me a few questions, and it's going to leverage Neota's built-in reasoning tools. So it's going to ask me, has the contractor created and implemented a COVID-19 safety plan? Do they agree to wear protective gear on premise? Do they agree that non-compliance will terminate the work in progress? If I do not agree to all of these terms, what's going to happen is the meet criteria variable is going to be set to no, and the whole workflow is going to end here. It could also get more complex than that. It could say no, and then another task could happen asking them to fill out a remedial form or something like that. It could get in contact with the initiator. They could take it offline. There are about a dozen different things you could do at this point. We just made it simple. Does not meet criteria. By the way, if we go back to sessions view, we can see the session state. In some cases, it didn't end when the workflow, it didn't completely go through the workflow. So if I go to the end here, this is when everything's been done properly. We'll see it says end agreement signed. That's great. And we can see, for example, this agreement has been signed. But if something like this happened where they didn't meet the criteria, the session status would then be end, for example, not approved in this case. And you'll see that you can no longer resume it, and that session's done. So it just provides you a little bit of information right there. All it takes is just naming that end node. But let's say I do meet the criteria. So all these three things are valid. And again, you know, we can get just about as complex as you want with any kind of formulas, or as simple as you want. I'm just gonna go to sign. So when I click submit, it should bring me to Docusign. This is Neota's built-in, not built-in, but this is Neota's Docusign integration capabilities. So you can see that we seamlessly move from Neota to Docusign. From the end user's perspective, there's very little difference. So Docusign is just gonna have me review this contract and then sign. When I click finish, it's gonna bring me back to the workflow. There's nothing I need to do from this step to make sure it brings me to the correct app. This is a different app than this one, but the workflow will just automatically direct you to the correct place as soon as you've answered the appropriate questions. And now the initiating party should receive an email, and we'd be right there, the initiating sign step, and they will click that link and they'll sign as well. One thing that those of you who've used Neota may notice is that typically in the past, our apps have been a bit bigger. You know, you might have a 10, 25 step app to accomplish this. And by the way, here's our signed document. You might have in the past have a 10 to 20 step app to accomplish the workflow that I've just showed you there. But what we can do with workflows is break each of these into smaller pieces, smaller problems. I mean, conceptually, a counterparty reviewing a document and a counterparty signing a document, those are different things. In the past, we smushed that together into one app. Now we can take each small step and break it into ideas. So just as you would think out the process, you create it in the same exact way. If I go to sessions view, I will now see that we have our fully signed document, which I can just access by downloading right there, and our process is at an end. Really quickly, I just wanted to show you, so this is a full completion of the process. This is something we've put together beforehand, obviously. So maybe it looks like we took a lot of time doing it, but you can create a process very quickly with workflows. If I go back to Workbench here and I create a new workflow, so I'll just call this, COVID workflow demo. I choose a category, and I already have an NDM database created for me. I have my first workflow. All I have to do is click edit, and it will bring me to a page with a start node, and I can just start adding applications from there. So the benefit of this is, let's say you have an organization and the people who are thinking up these processes aren't necessarily the technical people. They want to give you something to look at, and then they're going to have the technical people build out the underlying processes of that. It's really simple. Here's all I have to do. So let's say I'm a non-technical person, right? So I'm going to just click plus. Step 1, questionnaire. Step 2, let's say, signing. And then I can just drag another pool here, and I can say, other party. And step 3, other party signs. And then an email. Sorry, if I go here, I can add an email. And then I can add an end. Obviously, I'm not creating anything real here, but just to show you how quickly you can put ideas together. Once the non-technical people have done this, or once you've just whiteboarded it out in your own thought process, you can then assign an existing application to it, or you can just create a new application. So for example, for questionnaire, if I clicked on this task and I clicked edit, I could, click this list and find an existing application, or just click the plus button, a brand new application is created. So in that sense, you can modularly go step by step and create what you need to create. Now, I don't want to run over too much on time, so Max, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Moses. That's really great. And, I can't stress that point enough that, you can start at the beginning with maybe you've built the apps out and you want to string them together, or as we recommend, start at the end. Start with the flow, build the flow out, and then fill in the gaps with the applications. And actually, speaking of that, one thing I wanted to do was to show you Canvas. So give you an idea of how you could possibly rapidly automate an application itself. And in this case, I've actually taken one of your applications and wanted to throw it in Canvas to show how easy it is to make. So in your workbench, as is standard, you've got workflows, which Moses just showed you. You've got your Neota applications, pretty standard in there. Library, which are components of applications or templates, so pre-built applications that you can start, instead of starting at the basement, you can start a few floors up and hit the ground running. And the last one here is Canvas. So Canvas is a version of Studio, so it's actually an app building platform that runs in your browser. So that you can actually create apps on the fly. The lead time, or the time it takes to actually develop these applications is really, really short. Even the time to learn how to develop these applications really simple. In fact, by hitting the question mark here, it loads about 3 one-minute videos. Once you watch those, you're off to the races. So what you're seeing here is an environment really, really similar to what you've seen in workflows, but the purpose here is actually to create an application. So everything starts at the start, and then you move modules here from the left-hand side onto the plane and string them together to actually create an application. So what I did was I actually took one of the applications here. This was the Contractors Agreement application. So you've got their email, the signatory's name and email, and you have a few gateways here, some checkboxes to agree to. And then as you pointed out in the flow, there was a decision point after that. And the decision point was, if you've agreed to all those things, great, go on to signing. If you haven't, then, we're going to end the flow there. And the purpose of Canvas is so that you can build something really quickly and get it in front of a decision maker, get it in front of a team of people, and validate your use case. So build that minimum viable product, build that application really quickly. Now, these can be deployment level applications, but at the very least, they're an entry point to build something relatively quickly. So for example, when I started with the first node, I can actually come in here and edit the application on the fly. So I can actually start adding things in here, which then put them in the end application. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and replicated parts of that application directly in Canvas. So I've given it a title. I've added questions here, text questions for what your name is, signatory's name is, another text question for the email, and then I've just got some yes and no questions that are just like those tick boxes questions that you've got here. Once that information's brought in, is I've added some rules around it. So what I've said is if question one, so those are those checkbox questions, if question one is answered no, or question two is answered no, or question three is answered no, then your approval should be no. And similarly, on the other side of things, if question 1, 2, and 3 are all yes, and we've got the and indicator here that we can just slide around, then the approval is yes. So by doing this really quickly and mocking this up, we can actually run the application and take a look at it from the perspective of, we're thinking of building this tool that, third parties or contractors can, quickly identify and agree to terms, and then it creates a document. By doing this, you can actually fill out the information relatively quickly and as well test whether that's something you want to have going forward. So very quickly, you've intake their name and email and you've gotten that approval. I clicked yes to all of these, so it seems to be working. Let's change a few of them to no, then that approval changes. So I've actually built and proved the concept. I can now send someone a link to this. I can get it in front of them and they can actually determine what they want to happen next. And very similar in the application that yes, the look and feel will change slightly. And obviously you want to make things a little tighter in the production version, but we've been able to apply relatively the same theme, the same look and feel so that we can get it out the door there. So that's what I wanted to show you with Canvas, that this is sort of our new and improved environment that you can drag around different tools, add formulas, download some documents, trigger emails directly from here as well. But this is really, let's say you've created your flow and workflow and you've got it roughed in. Well, and someone comes to you, okay, well, show me one of the apps. Instead of then going backwards and trying to dig into the apps, come into Canvas, build it out quickly, get something in front of someone so you can incrementally get those approvals along the way, very similar to the sort of agile work environment. Great. So that is what we had today for you. We wanted to show you a bit of workflows, show you a bit of document automation. So as Moses showed you, we created a document, threw it through Docusign, and integrated that in with the workflow tool. We wanted to get you in Canvas and get you refamiliarized with that so you can see how easy it is to actually drag and drop things around. And we think with this, we're really excited to get these things in your hands so they're available right now to all of our customers. And if there's more you want to see, really encourage you to reach out to myself, reach out to Moses, reach out to support@neotalogic.com or info@neotalogic.com, and we're more than happy to help you and show you a lot more cool stuff under the hood. So a lot more stuff to come in the rest of 2020, but even more stuff to come in 2021, and really excited for the next upcoming sessions in the Neota Network, now that we're almost through day 3. And if there's anything prior to this, any videos that you might have missed, any content, we'll be circulating those videos and that content afterwards. So thank you very much, Moses. Fantastic job. I think that was really great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and look forward to seeing you at the next session of the Neota Network. Thank you very much.